Hey guys, Vanessa Simpkins here with you today. I just came back from one of the most amazing conferences, woo-hoo-hoo, of a lifetime. And it was the I Can Do It conference in Toronto, spiritual conference with some of the biggest names and authors and speakers in the spiritual kind of consciousness realm. And I met Wayne Dyer. Wow, that was like my biggest manifestation, my biggest intention, because he was the first person the first book I ever read really on personal development, spirituality. It was The Power of Intention. So, and I've been following his work for many years. And he spoke the first night, there was 3,000 people there. He was like the opening keynote, and people were like swarming him, right? And I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to get a picture with Wayne Dyer. It's my intention. I'm going to meet him, I'm going to shake his hand and tell him how amazing he is. There was so many people there, so I was like, you know what, I'll probably just meet him on the road. Like, taking a walk down the street. And what do you know, the next day, I was coming out of another conference, coming up the escalators, and I saw through the glass windows Wayne Dyer outside, and there was a few people around him, so I blasted out there and said hello and got a picture and shook his hand. He was a very nice man, very present. These very piercing blue eyes. And so I just have a few notes that I want to share with you from his keynote, which were really little kind of jewels of wisdom that I want to share with you. He said, his speech was really about manifesting your desires. And he said to manifest your desires, you need to have a willingness to suspend your beliefs. And he says, you really learn to think like God thinks. Because God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in me, and I am him. He talks a lot about using the words I am. He says be very careful when you use the words I am, because there's a lot of power to it. And he says, when an idea takes a hold of you and takes you where you were intended to go, this doesn't happen when you get motivated to pound something through with sheer determination. So the whole kind of big picture of this conference was that, our egos get in the way and we identify ourselves with the ego, which means edging God out. And, the ego, you can tell you're in the ego because it doesn't feel right. It's kind of manic. It's kind of anxiety-ridden. And, one of the things he said when I met him on the street was, he was telling people this, he says, in order to change, in order to have like miracles in your life, because he has got some like major miracles happening in his life. He was diagnosed with leukemia 2 years ago, and through this kind of spiritual, two things happened, but he's, doesn't have any signs of leukemia 2 years later, so really wild stuff. And he says, in order for, to have a miracle happen in your life, you have to be willing to lose all ideas of who you think you are. You have to be willing to let go of the idea of who you think you are. And I thought that was really good. I thought that was bang on. And he said the greatest gift is the gift of our imagination. If you want to be able to manifest something, you have to be able to envision it first. And he says, hang on to the dream. Most people are too distracted by the realities or evidences of the senses. It's kind of like what they say in the law of attraction. If you're focused too much on what's happening right now in your life through your senses, you can't step into the feeling of already having it, of already possessing it. And he really emphasizes this. Deny all evidence of your senses. Live in that. Live in the that you are already in possession of which you desire. So I wrote that down. And he said, self-actualizing people are detached from outcomes. They have no interest in dominating, controlling, or judging others. They don't care what other people think of them. And that rang true for me because my father was an artist and he was like that. He just didn't care about society or other people. He walked around with paint all over him half the time, and he was a self-actualized man. He painted, the beauty of God and nature. So that kind of stuck with me. And he said, you can be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. Woohoo! You can be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. And ego again means edging God out. So One of the latest books I think he's written, I actually had this book. It's called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. I've had this for years, but I could never really get into it. It's called Living the Wisdom of the Tao, the Wisdom of the Way. And I started reading it again since I've been home. Great book. And he said, in the conference, he said, just carrying this with you, one of his teachers says, when you carry a spiritual book with you, just carry it with you because it will transmit all the information, all of the energy to you, because everything is energy, right? Even this book and the words have energy. So I'm carrying this book with me now. And there's my little update for you guys about some of the ideas that I picked up at the conference with Wayne Dyer. I hope you guys like it. And stay tuned because I will be sending out more of these videos.